Welcome to the Only in Movies podcast. I'm your host, Onari, coming to you from Austin, Texas.
And I'm your host, Amato, coming to you from Buffalo, New York. And in this podcast, we break down scenes and discuss things that happen only in movies. Welcome back, everybody. Hello.
Hola.
You're still around. Thanks for coming back.
Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Only in Movies Pod to find out what movie we will be covering on our upcoming episodes. Watch ahead and send us your suggestions for scenes that should make our Only in Movies list, and also for a chance for your suggestion to make it on the show.
So, this week's movie, Blackkklansman, directed by Spike Lee, starring John David Washington, Adam Driver, Laura Harrier, Topher Grace, and Corey Hawkins. Here's a bit about the movie. Ron Stallworth is the first African-American detective to serve in the Colorado Springs Police Department. Determined to make a name for himself, Stallworth bravely sets out on a dangerous mission: infiltrate and expose the Ku Klux Klan. The young detective soon recruits a more seasoned colleague, Flick Zimmerman, into the undercover investigation of a lifetime. Together they team up to take down the organization as it aims to sanitize its violent rhetoric and appeal to the mainstream. I think first it's important to say that this is based on a true story, but This movie is not actually a true story.
No.
I think that's really important to establish.
Yeah, and I did some research because I wanted to kind of find out how much of it or what parts of it were true to the actual history and what parts were more embellished and kind of made up for the actual movie. So definitely, knowing what I know now, and I'll get into it in a little bit, it's definitely good that I did that research, I think, because some of like the major parts of the movie actually didn't happen. So that's good to have that information.
Yeah, I thought that was really important too. I did look it up too. I was like, wow, this is completely real. And I know based on a true story, there was going to be some embellishment, but this was a good amount of embellishment on the actual story. I enjoyed it. We'll talk about that as we go. Anything you want to throw out?
The first time I watched the movie, this is my second time watching it. The first time I watched the movie, I enjoyed it the second time too, but I really enjoyed like the style of the movie. It is a Spike Lee joint, but just the style of way that it was shot, I enjoyed it. And I think definitely the music and the era definitely added to the enjoyment.
I loved it.
I'm a fan of
it. Yeah. We were talking about that a little before, and I loved the 70s, the afros, the all black.
Right.
It was made for $15 million and made $92.6 million. So to me, that's a success.
Not bad.
That's a damn good, turnaround. So anything else before we get into the Only a Movie list?
No, let's get into it.
All right. So you first.
So my first scene for the movie was the shooting range scene. The first third of the movie was actually pretty solid. I didn't really find much ridiculous with it, at least myself. I found some, come on fam scenes, but I thought it had a pretty solid start. And then towards the middle and like end of the movie, where some things started to kind of unravel a little bit. But I'll get into my first scene and we'll go from there. So my first scene is the shooting range scene. This is when Ron Stallworth's partner, Flip Zimmerman, played by Adam Driver, he's at a shooting range and outdoor in the woods with the Ku Klux Klansmen, and you see them all practicing, and we know that he's trying to keep his cover, he's undercover, and yet he begins to kind of showboat with his marksmanship. Everybody's commenting on how good a shot he is.
Oh yeah,
he's using a rifle with a scope, and he's like hitting the mark every single time, bullseye. And then they bet him that he can't hit targets with a handgun, and he makes a bet, and he proceeds to like unload like rapid fire and hits every shot. And I'm like, are you trying to get
right? Everybody else can barely hit a target. They might catch one or two, but you out here. Yeah. I didn't
like why not downplay it a little bit? You should probably be downplaying your skill here so it doesn't come off fishy. Like, for example, he missed every shot in a prior scene when
he tried to shoot at Ron Stallworth trying to get away.
Yeah, John David Washington playing Ron Stallworth, Flip Zimmerman's in trouble in one of the houses where he's kind of going through the vetting process to join the KKK, and Ron throws a rock through the window to try to kind of get him out of that situation, and he runs out, takes over the gun, and he misses
completely.
And now, a couple of weeks later, he is an A1 marksman. I was like, what is happening? Like, you are not doing a very good job.
But they felt like them being around him made him better. They were improving him. They were like, wow, look at that. 2 weeks ago, he couldn't shoot.
Yeah, shared excellence.
Look at what we did for him. Yeah,
they're very proud to have a shot because apparently they were all terrible.
So right before that scene is one of my, I don't know if it's a Come On Fam scene, but he asks he tells him to prove you're not a Jew. Is your dick circumstanced?
Yes, I love that.
I was like, wait, what?
I also love that that Flip didn't even bother focusing on that. He went the gay angle. Like, you trying to see my dick?
Like, what's going on with this? Like,
he was like, this is too easy. All right, I can't even try to get him with that one.
A layup, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So my first scene is the progression of Ron from being in the record room to being an undercover cop to leading the entire investigation. Now, I'm sure in real life, he moved up the pipeline pretty quick, but in this movie, It made it seem like he did that in like 3 days.
Yeah, they didn't really cover that time was passing, right? Like, and how much time.
But I felt like they did, and it was just not a lot of time. Like, he was there for I felt like 2 days was like, I want to be undercover. They were like, okay, no problem. You could be undercover. Then he was there. His karate was trash. I have written down at one point.
The shadow boxing?
Yeah, it was trash. He comes in late, and that was a recurring theme. But at first, I was like, come on, you got your dream job. You're coming in late. And then he's like, can you put me on intelligence? So he literally got 2 promotions in a week based on the movie. And then he ends up leading an entire investigation. They planned for like 20 minutes. He doesn't even know his partner's Jewish. And I'm like, they're kind of pushing it with the timeline of him. And I'm all for people moving up, especially people of color. But I felt that was like, he took like the Willy Wonka elevator, to straight to the top. And I was like, wow, he just went from the record. Like, you have to learn how to do investigations. My dad was a cop. So you don't just show up one day and be like, okay, I'm copping now. And, you're taking pictures. Obviously, he didn't know how to tail because he almost got them caught.
Yeah, that got me so upset. I'm like, why are you literally trying to see
what's going on in the other car?
Conversation?
Right?
Yeah, like, you don't have to do that. You are listening in. You don't have to be in the car. All right.
Right.
With them. Yeah, I noticed that as well. That they were trying to kind of just move the plot along, but it did make it seem like he was not prepared, I guess. And maybe he wasn't, but they definitely didn't make it seem as if the progression was natural.
Speaking of progression, did you notice, I don't know, through your research, did you get that in real life? So in the movie, he calls the KKK, and that's how he gets the initial contact with them. But in real life, he actually sent them a letter. So they used the call to progress that a lot quicker, because waiting for him to get a letter would have took another 3 hours.
Yeah. But besides that, everything else was pretty factual in that first third.
Yes, I agree.
Movie,
yes.
as I say.
Yeah, and I also know that he was a rookie cop during the investigation, and he was leading the investigation. They just jumped from records room to undercover a little too quick for me.
Yeah. And it also made it seem like he was hired at that point. He lasted 10 months in the academy, and then he got, assigned to that police department. It almost made it seem like he just dropped to the police department and immediately, no training, and just kind of showed up like, hey, we need a black man as a cop, and you'll do the job.
Right. You in the corner.
Yeah, right.
But did you know that? Do you know who John David Washington is?
Yeah. So I like his character. I've been following him since the first time I actually saw him was in Ballers.
But do you know who his daddy is?
No, I don't know who his dad is.
Denzel.
I was gonna guess, but
that seemed too like a layup, right?
Right. A little too on the nose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that his dad is Denzel Washington.
All right, makes sense.
And I was like,
he has acting chops. Yeah.
And if you look at his IMDb, he was actually in Malcolm X, which is another Spike Lee joint and we're gonna have a little bit discussion about some Spike Lee joints as we go through this one. But I don't know what he played in Malcolm. I assume he played a kid in Malcolm X. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to call that.
No,
out.
absolutely not.
Yeah,
I just know that because of IMDb. Trust me, I'm not that good. I was like, and then I've been following him since 1992. No.
Yeah, I'm a John David Washington fan.
Right. So that's Denzel's son. And I thought that was a pretty interesting fact.
Going back to the other scene, you also mentioned the whole, we touched on him tailing him too closely. In that same scene, when Flip Zimmerman, his partner, is in the car with the guy that he met from the KKK when he gets introduced, I found it ridiculous that the guy is concerned about Flip using the word Ku Klux Klan, but not worried about getting into a potential shooting incident with this stranger he just met.
Right, he wants him to use organization. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, use organization, but here, take this sawed-off shotgun and shoot this other person right here, even though I don't have no idea who you are.
I think this movie established that they weren't the brightest of Klansmen.
No,
they weren't the cream of the crop ones that, the doctors and the lawyers of the Klan. These were the dummies.
First of all, you have some really, really stringent rules about trying to keep it low, and then you put out an ad that said Ku Klux Klan. So what is up with this?
That whole confused me, and for that to have been real, like that's not even like a movie effect,
right?
That was
funny.
Real fucking life. They were like, hey.
They put out an ad, and then they were like, but keep it low, though.
I got nothing, man.
My next scene is when Ron is meeting with his girlfriend, Patrice. She's the president of the Black Student Union, and he finds out that they might be in danger. Their rally or their meeting that they're going to have might be a target for some violence. And he has to kind of divulge how he knows this to her. And I find it ridiculous that she's been throughout the movies expressing her
disdain,
hatred towards what she calls pigs. Yeah, her disdain for pigs or cops. But he just told you that you were in danger because of his investigation, and he told you that this is a real threat, and you still chose to focus on him being a police officer over the information that he just told you about your
and
life
other people's
being
lives.
in danger.
Not just you.
Right.
We don't like cops. It's okay, baby. I understand.
Yeah. He wasn't being truthful. I get that too. You were vulnerable to him. But your life is in danger, homegirl. You should probably prioritize that. Get some information. Find out more. When, where, why. And then after that, if you must, continue to be upset. I just find it ridiculous that she just like blew him off and went on with a rally. I'm like, so you're going to go ahead with the rally that he just told you your friends and yourself might be in danger at. I found that scene ridiculous. I was like, I get the anger, but what's the purpose if you're all dead?
Right. Right.
So that scene killed me.
So I'm going to take it back to the scene when we talked about the organization, not the Klan. In that scene, by this point, Ron or Flip being Ron, has had one phone call with them, has known them for about an hour. Felix goes to ask if he's an undercover, and Walter says, nah, he's family. Don't even ask him that. I'm like, how is he family? This is a poor vetting process. You should at least let him answer if he's an undercover.
So I thought they had already had a couple of conversations, but I think regardless,
okay, yeah, so even
that's not a ridiculous question.
I'll give them 4 conversations on the phone. You still do not know that he's not an undercover. You're still not letting him be vetted, and he's still not your family.
No, not at all.
None of those things exist at that point. Then I thought it was crazy that they had an application form, again, because they're keeping it low. But they have application forms that are on paper. And I'm sure that these papers have your information and are being kept in a record somewhere so that when that place gets busted, everybody's information, address, and all of that can be exposed. That's fine.
Yeah, there were a lot of contradictory points here. It's like, keep it low, but we put an ad out. Who are you? But come on in. You're our family.
Your family, right?
Then
Then I thought it was nuts that he was able to get David Duke on the phone. And this, again, happened in real life. This is not one of the exaggerated scenes. He was able to get David Duke on the phone. And one of the guys says, and this is, of course, Spike Lee foreshadowing because he knows what happened, says one day he might even run for higher office because, David Duke ran in the 92 election.
Yes. So I found that seemed to be pretty good because of like the whole foreshadowing aspect. But I also noticed that it was forced a lot. So Spike Lee was clearly had a narrative in there, or trying to make connections between David Duke and that whole presidential run, as well as like current day President Trump.
Absolutely.
Like, I think they were sprinkled all over, and he wasn't exactly being subtle.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
I would not call this movie subtle by any means.
No, I think that's not Spike Lee's style.
No. Good, bad, or indifferent, he's not going to be subtle.
No. So that kind of conversation with the sergeant was one where he talked about one day. And I like that he's like, you're so naive for him to think that. Again, that was like another callback to the people in President Trump sentiment. And then the other line where David Duke is saying, like, oh, America's trying to achieve his greatness again. I was like, these are not subtle callbacks.
No, exactly.
And I think for the listeners, for those that might not know, David Duke was the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and at one point national director. So he was the leader essentially of the Ku Klux Klan in the United States. So this is why it was pretty impressive that a rookie cop was able to get him on the phone speaking about the organization
in like 5 minutes.
not to mention, and I think I want to stress, a black rookie cop was able to get the leader of the KKK on the phone.
Important.
Yes.
Poor vetting process.
Yes. Poor is the understatement of this episode, I think. It was a terrible vetting process. You getting a reporter on the phone would have been a poor vetting process. Right. You got an African American that you're supposed to be
cop.
The purpose of your organization is to try to
eradicate
these people.
I guess it depends on who you talk to, but
yeah,
I'm gonna go with eradicate.
Yes.
So speaking of Spike, what's your favorite Spike Lee movie?
Ooh, that's tough.
So I have to say that for those of you who might not know, I'm in a fraternity, and I'm in a fraternity. There's a big reason to that is because of School Days. I saw School Days and was like, one day I'm going to be in a fraternity. So that's always has a special place in my heart. X, I always will love, and Mo Better Blues. I think those are my top 3. I already wrote this down though, so I surprised you with the question I had prepared. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think from all the one, Malcolm X would be probably at the top of the list. Definitely, I've watched that movie several times and I enjoy it every time. So yeah, I loved Malcolm X. I think after that, another movie that I would put up there for me, and it's more recent, he has some classics from way back in the era.
And he has a lot of movies people don't realize are his too.
Right. So I think one of those is Inside Man.
Inside Man. I knew you were going to say that. Oh,
yeah. I'm a Denzel fan, first of all. I love me some Denzel. And that movie, the style of that movie, I remember watching it in a movie theater when it came out. It was a very enjoyable, twists and all that stuff. It was.
Have you ever seen School Days?
No.
Oh, you should see School Days. Have you ever seen Mo Better Blues?
Nope.
Okay.
There's a lot of Spike Lee
Jungle Fever
that I haven't seen.
I got jungle fever. She's got No.
No. I think it's probably better to tell you the ones that I have seen.
I give up. I don't even care anymore. All right. I've seen a lot. My least favorite is Red Hook Summer. I don't know if you ever saw Red Hook Summer.
Nah, I never saw it.
Well, I thought I would really, really like it. I'm from Brooklyn, but I didn't love Red Hook Summer. And fun fact, I went to school in Brooklyn Tech across the street from where Spike Lee's store used to be on the corner, and his brownstone was across the street. And one of the kids I went to school with was actually in Crooklyn.
Look at you.
So and the famous, if you ever watched the Spike Lee doc, there's a documentary about the 90s and a lot of the artists in the 90s. I can't remember what it's called right now, but how they convened into Spike Lee's office in Fort Greene, right around the corner from Brooklyn Tech. It's the old firehouse around the corner from Tech.
So you guys are basically family.
Yeah, yes, we're about the same size too.
So my next scene is the explosion scene outside of Patrice's house. So Patrice and her other homegirl, they come back from dropping off that speaker near the end of the movie. He was just giving a story kind of the death of a young boy.
So do you know who that was, that speaker, in real life?
No.
That's Harry Belafonte. And his daughter, Gina Belafonte, was actually the producer for this film. And she was standing behind him during that discussion. I'm sorry to cut you off, because that was actually a scene that I thought was really important to the overall theme of the movie because of the imagery of that scene. So as Harry Belafonte is telling that story, he's sitting in the chair that Huey Newton is sitting in when he takes his famous Black Panther picture. So I don't know if you noticed that.
I could tell that they were trying to kind of recreate something because they were taking some cinematic shots of it, and it wasn't like a regularly shot, fluid scene. They kept kind of framing.
So he's sitting in the chair
ways.
Huey Newton sitting in his famous Black Panther picture.
Got it. Yeah, I knew it was something with that scene. I was like, there's something that they're trying to convey in the scene, but it just didn't hit me. just watching it through.
Yeah, and his story. That's Harry Belafonte telling that story, who he is. At some point during that scene, the producer's actually standing behind him. So there was a lot in that. That was a really powerful scene.
Yeah, and the story was just powerful as well.
Right, of course, absolutely. Right, they could have did no imagery with that scene. He could have just sat there in the dark and told that story, and it would have still been really powerful. But with the background of it, it was really like, whoa.
The background and then like the superimposing of like the faces listening in, kind of taking it all in. The actual
pictures that they were
postcards.
holding.
Yeah, it was a good scene.
But then that leads to, because we have overlap in this scene, so this is pretty high on the ridiculous relativity scale. So continue.
So Patrice pulls up after having dropped off the speaker that Mato just mentioned, and she goes inside, and Felix's wife had been trying to put the C4 and the mailbox, and she can't because it's just too thick. It doesn't fit in the mailbox. So she decides to just throw it under the car and run away. So later on, you see Ron pull up and he's chasing her, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But before that, the explosive guy that provided the C4 mentioned that it was powerful enough to blow the whole house up, pretty much. As long as it was close to the house, it could blow the whole house up. Right?
So why not just fling it on the porch?
Yeah, that. And then also, when they did finally pull up to detonate it, they pulled up right next to the house. So I was like, what? Why would you pull up next to the house that you're about to blow up? To me, that made no sense. Like, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You don't know if the gas line's going to go with it. You were also parked next to a car. So that car could blow up. Yeah. I was like, so these guys, and not to mention, if it would have just been, a random guy detonating it and not remembering the instructions, the explosives guy was in the car. So I was like, you're not following your own instructions.
Real quick, the explosive guy, as soon as I saw him, I was like, he's Italian.
Yeah.
he's Italian as fuck. Why is he rolling with the Klan? He did not fight his people, and I don't think he's allowed to be rolling with the Klan. I'm pretty sure the Klan and Italians didn't love each other.
So yeah, so I had the same thought. I was like, this is not the same white guy that these other guys are portraying to be.
He's different.
I was like, he's even a little tanned.
He's olive.
Yeah.
So I have that same scene, but my first thing is I fucking hated Connie. Obviously, you're supposed to hate Connie. I hope you hate Connie. If you didn't hate Connie, you're not my kind of peoples. But I fucking hated Connie. So this was Plan B. Plan B was contingent on their mailbox being a certain size to fit the C4 in. Right?
Yeah.
She didn't throw it like you said. She could have placed it. She could have put it anywhere else. Or like I said, she could have just thrown it right on the porch and went about her business. She decides to carry it with her and place it elsewhere that nobody else knows the plan.
She got specific instructions anywhere near a wall. Right. She could have put it by a bush.
So and that also makes me go, what was their original plan? Because their original plan doesn't seem too solid either. That they were just going to put it at a gathering of people, then roll up and then detonate it. I just didn't seem like Plan A was that great of a plan to begin with, but then the police followed that. So I was happy that the races blew up and it was a happy ending, but I just thought that Plan A and Plan B were both kind of suspect. But as you know, that didn't happen in real life.
Yeah, so this is a part where we can mention this scene, the explosion scene, was not part of the true story. So they did use an actual KKK bomb plot.
Yes.
As part of this movie. So they Spike Lee or the writers mixed in Ron Stallworth's story with a true story of the Ku Klux Klan planning to plant a bomb at a different point in time. But you also mentioned earlier, these guys were just not the brightest. Right. Because it would have not been a little bit odd for a random white woman to be at this rally that they're going to be in, just mixed in together in a Black Power rally. I mean,
but she doesn't even look like she would have been a good undercover. I'm at a Black Power rally. Like, she looks like if a black person would have bumped up against her, she would have fainted. Like, she might have died.
Yeah, that's another. She had no composure.
I fucking hated her.
I also find it funny that she fought so hard to get her role, and then you see in the middle of the movie, she's kind of trying to walk it back a little bit. Like, are you sure we need to kill people? I know we was talking about it, and I really want to do it. I'm not trying to front, but can we not do it? How about that?
I wasn't feeling her. When she was cheering during Birth of a Nation, I just wanted her to choke on spit.
And that whole scene was just...
and obviously it was a shock scene, but I wanted to. And then all the black workers were there. I was like, oh, I would spit in all their food. They wouldn't have been able to eat their food. Their food would have been spit and then whatever it was, like
gooey
steak. They would have known. You know what's funny too? He really did get that picture in real life. That really.
I figured that was the case. I didn't read, but I figured that to make that an emphasis in the movie, it's likely because it happened in real life. So, but yeah, as you know, so again, not the brightest people, but we know that in that scene, Ron was tackling or had tackled Connie at that point. My other part of that scene was, how did Felix and the explosives guy not see Ron and that whole commotion in the street? Because at that exact moment, Patrice and her homegirl came outside and they saw her, and that's what kind of made them want to do it at that moment,
Well, so even if they would have saw her, what would they have done? They would have still went through with the bomb, no?
Yeah, so I was thinking, like, did they just not care?
I would have said, I would have go with they just didn't care.
Connie was expendable.
Right. She's a dummy anyway. Fuck her. I didn't like her, obviously.
The plan was actually for her to blow herself up, but she didn't know it.
They were like, okay, keep it in your purse and get right by the wall.
Yeah, and then
your
the
purse
strap
is
was going to
bomb-proof.
detach automatically.
Right?
Yeah, like...
For you. You'll be safe. You'll be good.
So yeah, so that whole scene was a little unbelievable, and it didn't happen, so it makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, that was my last scene. Do you have any others?
I don't have any others. I would like to talk about a couple things. So, one thing.
Go for it.
Do you know who Stokely Carmichael is?
No, I've heard of the name, but I can't recall now.
So, big Stokely Carmichael fan. There's this. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but there's this documentary. It's called a Black Power Mixtape, and it shows a bunch of speeches from that era of Stokely Carmichael, a bunch of different black figures during that time. So when I first see Corey Hawkins come in, I'm like, oh great, they got Dr. Dre playing Stokely Carmichael. This is going to be terrible. And I was wrong. If you actually go back, and I actually, after watching him, watch some Stokely Carmichael speeches, he killed it. His body language, his actions, he made me say, fuck Tarzan. I was like...
Yeah, I like that scene.
Yeah,
and it's funny because the first time I watched it, I had a similar thought. I was like, this is gonna sound bad, but for some reason, for whatever reason it is, I forget the actual actor's name. He doesn't.
Corey Hawkins
does not instill confidence in me when he acts, like, his demeanor. But then in his roles, he does a good job.
He kills it.
I don't know. Right.
he puts his foot in it. Like, and if you watch a Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, which would be his later name, speech, he killed it. He body language, his actions, inflections. I was like, oh, I had to write. I wrote Dr. Dre, and then I wrote nope. He was Stokely Carmichael. I thought that was excellent. Yeah. And I advise anybody to watch the Black Power Mixtape. It's an excellent thing to watch.
So that's an interesting fact. I also have one regarding the guys that were in the movie that were identified as army guys. So that's true as well. They were actually two guys that were part of NORAD, which is a defense segment of the military, and they were actually reassigned because of Ron Stallworth's investigation. Of course, in racist 1970s, they weren't just fired or removed for being part of the Ku Klux Klan.
No.
Or whatever the case, they were involved directly with the Ku Klux Klan.
Regardless.
They were just reassigned.
No.
And they actually have Ron Stallworth in an interview, because this was, like I said, this is a true story, so he couldn't necessarily just speak about the investigation all willy-nilly because actual people were involved. They actually had, his white partner that was involved with the Ku Klux Klan as part of the investigation. But later on, he decided to divulge some of the details, and that was one of them, that he did have those two military personnel that were part of the Ku Klux Klan and those meetings. So I found that very interesting how, and he made the joke like they were probably relocated to the North Pole or something.
I would love to tell you I was shocked about that. That was like shocking. Yeah. Upsetting, yes, but
it was believable, but having to be confirmed is something else,
So have you ever watched The Wire?
Of course. It's one of my favorite TV shows.
So probably did you catch the Wire reference when Isaiah Whitlock was like, she? Yeah, okay.
I have that one on there. That's definitely one of my funny things. I was like, I love it. And you know what? He's done that now in like 3 or 4 movies.
4 different things, yeah.
Yes, he's definitely kept that as part of like his character in other movies not related to The Wire.
That's dope. When he tells the chief he's going to be Branch Rickey. You know who Branch Rickey is?
Nah.
He was the managers. He was the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers when Jackie Robinson was.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I didn't know who Branch Rickey was, but I understood
the reference. But that was that was a Brooklyn shout out, and I was like, oh, Brooklyn.
Yeah. I thought that whole scene was pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
How the chief is trying to be all politically correct, and then he just comes in and kind of tells it like it is, like you said. It's like, I'm missing turrentine.
What's funny too is when he starts when he gets right on the phone with the Ku Klux Klan and he just starts dropping the racial slurs back to back to back to back. It reminded me of I'm watching the Bad News Bears with the kids, and one of the kids just like he went on a tirade. and I was sitting there with my mouth like, whoa. And I was like, whoa, in the 70s, you could just say what the hell you felt like.
It's a different time. Daddy.
What do you have us watching?
When the kids are telling you like, hey, tone this down.
Yeah. What kind of parenting are you doing right now?
Yeah, I also found it funny in that same scene with Isaiah, not in the scene with the slurs, but in the scene with Ron getting the kind of talk when he's joining the force. He goes, "What does a black man sound like?" I love that because I still get that now as a Dominican man. Like, oh, you don't sound Dominican. I'm like, what does a Dominican sound like?
I have written down, I hated being told I talk white growing up. You sound white. Oh my God! Once I realized that was offensive, that offended me, and I would tell people.
Yeah, the first few times it was like more inquisitive. I'm like, oh, I don't. What do I sound like? And then after a while, I was like, oh, I get it. Okay,
I see what you're trying to say here. Right?
Yeah.
Hate that shit. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
What's also funny is he also used his real name in real life.
Yes. That is a pretty rookie mistake right there.
Yeah.
I found that funny, and it actually caused some like in the movie at least. I'm not sure if in real life it did. It caused some dangerous situations,
right?
Because they had to roll with it because this might be their only opportunity to actually infiltrate. Yeah, but yeah, that's a pretty bad mistake to make. It's like when you're trying to use a fake name and you say your real name still.
My name is Armando.
Yes. Armando Fija. Yeah. I'm Daniel. Like, damn it, that's pretty close to Danny.
So now we're just gonna go into our come on fam scenes. Those are scenes that we watch in the movie and we're like, come on fam, this didn't make any sense. Go ahead, D.
So one of mine that I had is the chief is, I assume, being kept abreast of this investigation and the involvement of Ron and the fact that he's talking to David Duke on a daily basis almost, it seems like.
And he asks him to protect him.
Yeah, at one point, David Duke and him are like sharing like childhood stories. And this is the guy that you're going to choose to protect David Duke when he comes to town. Like, were they trying to sabotage?
Life. I have the word sabotage written on my paper.
It seemed like a blatant attempt to either sabotage the investigation or try to get
Ron that's the only sabotage. Everything points to sabotage. That was dumb. Why would you even
but sabotage is one thing, but putting their own men in danger is something else. Because if you were only sabotaging, for example, Ron, maybe the chief is a bigot or a racist, but it didn't really give you that impression because he was honestly giving him a chance at the beginning of the movie anyways. It seemed that way.
That confused me, the whole action of it. And again, it happened in real life. So I'm like, I don't understand the thoughts going into that, why you would make that decision as a leader. That was bad leadership.
Yeah, I couldn't reconcile if that was maybe outside pressure. That didn't really hint to that much, but we've seen that in other situations where even a chief with good intention gets pressure from someone else. Like, hey, squash this.
Right. So I thought that they nominated Ron /Flip for chapter president after he was down with them for what seemed like a week. Was nuts. Like they were like, yo, he's family, he's our president, and now he's our leader. He shot the gun.
Our fearless leader.
Right, he shot the gun. He doesn't like Jews. He's not circumstanced. He meets all of our criterias.
I think that really spoke to the quality of guys that they had currently. They were like, these guys are so bad. We'll take anybody off the street, man. Anybody, all right?
You're right, leader now.
They're like on a corner with the sign flipping, just like anybody wants to be president of the chapter.
I also thought it was funny when Ron rolled up to meet Patrice at the first event, the Stokely Carmichael event.
Yeah,
she
was aggressive.
She never met him before. And she just let her friends just walk away. All he said was hi. She was like, in. And I was like, that's really unsafe.
Yeah. Not only unsafe, but maybe it's the 70s, but that was a very direct approach get to talking to somebody.
He just walk up. He didn't really. Oh, he said it was high though. He didn't really approach like per se. They just all
she
left
didn't really
her.
ask anything. Yeah, they were like, "All right, I guess they're talking now." And then the guy pushed her away. I guess they recognized he was like, shooting his shot with her.
Right.
But this is a complete rando off the street.
As far as everyone's concerned, right?
Yeah, so that was a good one. I found it funny. This is not really Come On Fam. I think I'm done with my Come On Fam scenes, but I have a couple of funny things that I wanted to point out too. I thought that Topher Grace, his rendition of David Duke, it gave me Eric Foreman vibes from that '70s show, like all over. I don't know that you noticed that.
I don't. He's always gonna give you Eric Foreman vibes, no matter what he's doing. Really.
See,
you don't feel like that?
No, because I've seen him in other roles, and he doesn't. And he has had some where he does, admittedly, but it doesn't happen every single time. But this one, his mannerisms, and I've seen David Duke speak. I mean, now, not back then,
right?
But it didn't seem very David Duke like. It seemed more Topher Grace or Eric Foreman like.
I can see that. I definitely got that from him. Absolutely.
I think one of my last funny scenes or funny stuff that I caught was when they were in that bar, when they do the initial introduction to Walter, where he's telling the story. He was like, "Yeah, my wife was raped by a pack of N-words." I was like, "A pack?" I was like, "What?" So they roll through the streets and like.
Based on watching A Birth of a Nation, yes, actually they do. If that's gonna be your source material for your understanding of people of color, then yeah, I mean that's how you think it works. Yeah. I was gonna ask real quick, what did you think of the Charlottesville video at the end?
So the first time I saw the movie, I thought it was interesting. Like I said, Spike was not being subtle. So when I first saw the movie, I didn't know how. I know how it fits because of the resurgence of like white nationalists, but it just seemed very odd to have that at the end of the movie when it wasn't a contemporary movie or the events weren't contemporary. But like I said, this is a Spike Lee joint, and he kind of, like you said, he's loud and proud with his style. I thought it drove home the overall messages throughout the movie, which is
I agree.
As much as people think these things aren't, are gone, or they're a thing of the past, they're not going to happen again, they're very small. Like he said, it's pretty naive to think that these things are actually going away when you see events like this happen in 2017, 18, 19.
I agree. I thought it was, so I've only seen the movie once, so I obviously didn't know to expect that. But I thought it put it in your face, like this is really what's happening. Like if you want to acknowledge it or not, this is what's actually going on in the real world.
That's a great point, because when I first watched the movie, I hadn't actually watched the video because sometimes, even though these things are always in the news and they're kind of like plastered everywhere, I try as hard as I can to not watch a lot of these videos, at least not like the graphic parts of it. I'll read a story about it, etc. So like you said, just putting it out there is kind of making you face it in a way. And if you hadn't, by some stretch of the imagination, heard about the story, this also puts it out there for those that might not have.
Okay, so let's go into our overalls.
You might want to phrase that differently.
Okay, so let's go into our reviews.
All right, that was fun. Let's go into our overalls. It's like, all right, let's get in
together like a family.
You got one leg, I got the other. All right. So for my overall review of the movie, I'm going to do a sandwich method as well. I think I definitely enjoyed it. Just like, again, this is my second watch, but even on the second watch, it was still a good movie. It's definitely funny. It was tackling a very serious subject, and it did so with humor. It did so with, I think, piquing your interest to find out more each time. So at the second watch, I actually decided to do the research, partly because of the podcast and partly because I didn't know, and after watching the first movie, how much was true and how much wasn't. And it just, on a second watch, it made me want to find out, like, oh, I wonder which parts of this, because some of that seems ridiculous, admittedly. Like the fact that David Duke just picked up the phone and had a conversation. But it was, again, the 70s, and maybe they were way lax.
He was just so happy the phone rang. He was, oh my God, someone's calling.
Hey, buddy.
We got a new recruit.
It's a big difference from that to today, where you probably couldn't get him on the phone if you tried.
Who knows? Let's call him.
Let's ring him up.
Dave, you fucker.
The story was good. It's based on a true story. I think they did a great job at capturing the elements that were true. Now, my critique of it would be that the embellishments were sometimes a little ridiculous. For example, like, we covered the scene with explosions, but I think they also did add a significant amount of drama that wouldn't probably be there if it was just the truthful story of the investigation. There was plenty on that side, but the culmination of them kind of escalating their actions and also one of them, part of the members going rogue, kind of, because that's the other piece. Walter was kind of always the leader of that chapter, and he was very level-headed, as much as level-headed as a racist Ku Klux Klan leader can be, but he was pretty level-headed. Yeah. Versus, Felix, that was just a crazy person. So that's another positive for it was the messaging. I thought also the messaging of like, you don't necessarily have to be only for Black power, Black love, etc., and try to still do something for your community or your people. And that was, I think, a message that was being driven the whole movie. And I like that aspect of it as well.
So I'm going to sandwich method it too. I thought the story was great. To me, I always say that real life is usually more interesting than anything people could make up in movies and on TV. Like real life.
Art imitates life.
Yeah. Real life is nuts. And you could see that here. This was a great story. Thought it was a really great story. I thought they had really great character development. I thought they did a lot of great references to the Black figures of the time. Again, they put a shout to Huey Newton, to Stokely Carmichael. They put shouts to again Harry Belafonte. I thought that was really a big deal. And
that scene with where they were going through all the movies, I thought that was pretty cool as well. Where they were comparing, Patrice and Ron were just in the park and they were comparing all like the Shaft movies and all
they discussed blaxploitation.
Yeah,
that's right. That's actually something I wanted to talk about. I forgot. But that is important to the Black experience. And Spike kind of he nailed it. He just grabbed all of that stuff.
Yeah, especially referencing how even the guys from the KKK were admitting that they enjoy some of these characters.
Oh yeah, characters, music, all that stuff, sports. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're useful when we're useful.
So that was definitely a good way to tie it all in.
Yeah. My bad. I thought it was a little longer than it needed to be. It was 2 hours and 16. Yeah. I think you could have cut at least 2 hours max. A little less than that. I understand you wanted to do a lot. You wanted to fit a lot in. I still think you could have got rid of some filler and hammered the point more. The other good, it's a return to Spike, and it gave you the Spike vibe. It was, you could tell this was a Spike Lee joint the entire time.
Yes, but it was not subtle.
It wasn't subtle, but it was also modern. It wasn't stuck in the 80s.
Or New York.
He didn't do the walk with you camera trick that he did in all the the movies in the 90s. It was new. It was fresh. Again, I enjoyed it. I didn't know exactly what to expect going into it. I didn't really watch a lot of the trailers and all of that going into it. I literally watched the trailer maybe like half an hour before I actually watched it. So I was pleasantly surprised. Denzel Washington's son, John, I think he's up and coming. I'll be on the lookout for him. Though he did an excellent job.
I think he already got here. I mean, I think this movie was
his coming out party.
Yeah, because he's been on TV, like I said, to the show Ballers, and even in that show, he kind of stole the scene with the charismatic character that he played there.
Okay, so I guess I just need to look out for him a little more then.
Yeah. He's been on my radar for a couple years now, and when I saw him as the lead in this, I was definitely a little bit hyped. Like I said, I'm a fan of his, and I think he did a great job showing, given the opportunity that he got, he did a great job at it.
Some scenes in this movie, it was a serious comedy, so some scenes really hit hard. Some scenes were like just watching them watch Birth of a Nation, the way they celebrated, the targets they used when they in that scene that you referenced. The little kids running, the Black kids running targets. There was a lot of things that hit hard and were like, woof, people did this. Like, I know some of this stuff was exaggerations, but they showed Birth of a Nation at the White House. So it's not, and that happened in real life. So it's not.
I found that interesting. That's something that I didn't catch the first watch, where he actually details the fact that the president even commented on the movie.
Right. Just those little things. We both watched this movie and learned,
Agreed.
You learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things. And then we went and looked up and tried to learn more. So I thought that was, that's part of our character too. So I don't expect everybody to go do that. But I thought that was a testament to the strength of this movie.
Yeah, I think because also the fact that it was a true story, and then when you see it take place, there are some things that are so surprising. It makes you want to go out and do the research. And I think him choosing this story for this movie had a large part into doing that.
So my last funny thing. Again, I'm a Spike fan. I've been a Spike fan. I somehow didn't name Do the Right Thing, but I don't know if that's gonna make my top 3 with the 3 I have. But when I was young, I could not grasp the colloquialism of "show enough you dig," and show enough. Yeah, I'd be like, what does that mean? It was like, it exceeded me. I remember asking my aunts, my mom, and they were like, it's sure enough. You understand? And I was like, no, I don't. So again, that's just me and Spike, and we've gone back, and I've been a fan for a very, very long time.
Yeah, he does definitely include a lot of colloquialism and bonics when he does his movies.
Mo Better Blues.
He definitely immerses the movie in it and kind of is unapologetic with putting the black culture in there and having people just figure it out.
Yep. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Too bad.
Yeah.
God gave you choices. Yeah. Okay. So follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Only a Movies Pod.
Yeah, let us know what movies you want us to cover. As always, check our Instagram, check our Twitter, check our Facebook to find out the movie that's coming out next week. Leave us comments, any suggestions for movies. We appreciate everyone that has been interacting with us. We definitely appreciate the love. We've been feeling it.
Absolutely, all day.
So we really appreciate that. We've been doing this for now a little while, and we're seeing the people get entrenched in the show and come to expect it and come to like it. So that's really encouraging for us. So we appreciate all that love.
Remember, I said a couple episodes we'll be doing this forever. So you're not getting rid of us. So join us next time for more things that happen only in movies.